makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part.
If you're a cynical misanthrope like me, you've probably spent the last couple of months mocking the anti-vaxxers who have died of COVID because they didn't get vaccinated. And I think this is a perfectly natural and perfectly justifiable response against people who are so utterly selfish that they take their own individual needs, their own conspiracy theories, whatever, and forget that they live in society where their actions have impacts on others. And well, I don't think this changes their mind in any way. I mean, mocking the existing anti-vaxxers before they die, I don't think will change their mind in any way. I think there is a possibility, however, that people who might be slightly on the fence will see the mockery and perhaps decide not to be on the side of those who are endlessly mocked. But there is still obviously a debate on whether mockery and shame works. So here's the thing. I think it probably does. And I think there's some evidence that that might be the case. So there was a recent survey from Monmouth, which does recurrent polls on attitudes towards vaccination. And the latest one has some interesting numbers. And it seems that, well, support for vaccine mandates is rising and anti-vax sentiment is falling. So let's look at some of these numbers. I'm not going to go through the whole survey. I'm going to link to it in the description in case you want to see it in depth. But here's, for example, concerns about serious COVID illness in family. And this is also kind of a good proxy of just how serious you're taking the pandemic. And it fell to just 19 somewhat and 23% vary back in June. But now that the Delta variant has led to its latest wave in the US, especially in some states with high levels of unvaccinated people, like Florida, like Mississippi, etc., we can see that these concerns are going up considerably. So that is good. That is a good thing. The more you're afraid of I know these people are always like, you can't make us afraid. We have to live our life. No, you should be afraid. Like you should be freaking afraid. This is a pandemic. This is the disease does not care about how brave you are. Okay, it's gonna kill you anyway. So this macho posturing about how fearless you are about going out and about without a mask and not taking any precautions, the virus does not care at all. Okay. But here's some of the more interesting data, and that's the ones that's directly related to the vaccine. So it's this table over here, and this is the percentage of people who have who say they will likely never get a vaccine. And that number has fallen to 15%. It was 17% back in July, 21% in June, and 24% back in March. So we've seen an almost 10 percentage point decline in the number of people who are adamant about not getting the vaccine. That is a good thing. And you can tell that there were some people on the fence kind of around July-ish, but then that has fallen as well. So good. This is all good. And again, support for booster shots is also up. Well, I don't know if it's up, but it's very positive. I think this might be the first time that they're polling this, but yeah, the numbers are encouraging, and the science is still out there whether most people will need it, but it does appear that vulnerable people will probably need a booster shot. I strongly think we probably will at some point next year need another shot. Yeah. So Yeah, do you want to institute face mask social distancing guidelines? That's gone up from July to September. A huge increase. So 52% to 63%. So by and large, more people are supporting having social distancing measures or any other measures to contain the virus. So the people and the politicians who are adamantly against vaccine mandates and any restrictions, the Governor DeSantis types, they're the minority now. They're basically pushing the views of a minority of people, and that's not what politics should be about, should it? But anyway, back on the issue of shaming. Has this been the result of shaming? Has the the lower likelihood that people won't get the vaccine, that they're accepting its use, does this have to do with shaming? I don't think it's the case. Okay, I'm going to be honest. I think people, like some people, this 15%, or at least a segment of this 15%, has lost such, has a completely warped view of reality, a completely warped view of their importance in the world, that they don't care whether they're mocked, whether they're shamed, whatever. I think a significant amount of these people uh, is aware, and they've seen what happens. They've seen, for example, the huge number of conservative radio hosts who are anti-vaxxers and who have died. The most recent one, this Bob Enyart guy, who is now dead. He was an anti-vaxxer. He look at this, the bullshit that this guy was basically. This is why I don't respect them. Okay, this is why I have like zero respect for them and zero empathy, and I will continue mocking and shaming them on Twitter or wherever I can. I don't care. I seriously don't care. Fuck civility. Okay. Enyart's wife Cheryl is also sick. Whatever. So who knows? Might be both of them might see each other in heaven. Great. Both refused the coronavirus shot to protest the use of aborted fetal cells collected many years ago in vaccine research. Are you fucking kidding me? And urge others to boycott the shot for the same reason. See, this is why I don't have respect for them. If he wants to have those views and live outside of society, fine. But he has a friggin' radio program where he's spreading this. Enyart, who is also a pastor, of course, of Denver Bible Church, opposed mask mandates and called those who impose them mask Nazis and mask mandating control freak bureaucrats. He won a lawsuit last autumn against mask mandate and COVID and crowd restrictions. Yeah, that's the kind of guy. Apparently, he also mocked AIDS victims in the past. So that's the kind of dickhead that we're dealing with. And that's why I don't think these people deserve even the slightest bit of empathy. Like not a tiniest amount, not a molecular level of empathy. But someone disagrees with that. And that's kind of what I wanted to comment on this video, because there was an article by Elizabeth Bruenig in The Atlantic called Stop Death Shaming. Mocking the unvaccinated dead does not save lives. Now, here's the deal. Elizabeth Bruenig, I like her writing. She's lefty. I think she's an open socialist. I'm not quite sure. But she's also a Catholic, a very devoted Catholic. So to some extent, I think this article is written with kind of Catholic sympathies more than anything else. And so her argument is basically that mocking and shaming is not an effective means of persuasion. And like I said from the start of this video, I agree. I don't think that mocking and shaming will change most people's opinion. I do suspect, and I think the data on improving opinions over the vaccine is perhaps the people on the fence might be if they see others being shamed and mocked. But anyway, I agree that perhaps shaming on its own will not convince anyone. But So the question, therefore, is how do you persuade the unvaccinated? And she quotes another survey about the reasons why people were hesitant about getting the vaccine. So let's look at what that survey said. Just more than half of the respondents, listed the potential side effects of the vaccines as a major concern. So, and she lists some articles from major publications, which I also agree. The media has done a really bad job at like making massive headlines over tiny little side effects that probably, are, I mean, you have to weigh them in, make a cost benefit analysis on whether it's worth concerning ourselves about these side effects. And they don't. Like, medical journalism is terrible, like terrible. I have no amount of respect, to be honest, for the average medical journalist, because it's basically just clickbaity titles, piss poor knowledge of statistics. They always, for example, what they always do, which really annoys me, is when they say, for example, X food or X whatever raises your risk of X cancer by 50%. And people will be like, oh my God, 50%. They'll look at that number. This is a heuristic, by the way. They will look at that number and just get scared shitless. And then they don't realize that the actual risk of whatever that particular cancer is like 0.5%. Like, lifetime risk of that cancer is 0.5%. So a 50% increase in 0.5 really raises your risk to 0.75. Okay? But they don't put that in the headline. They don't say your risk of that cancer rises to 0.75%, where people would see that and be like, well, let's really weigh this risk on that basis. No, they'll just see the 50% and go, oh my God, I'm going to die of this. No. So, yeah, this is poor information. Okay. But let's see the other reasons. Nearly 4 in 10. So this is not like the main reason. This is simply the reason that most people picked, and they were allowed to pick more than one. So, for information. Now, nearly 4 in 10 unvaccinated Americans don't trust the vaccines, which might be an expression of concern about either efficacy or side effects. No, Elizabeth, that's not why they don't trust the vaccines. They don't trust the vaccines because they've created a freaking conspiracy theory in their head, which, if you're right-winger, it's because it's big government mandating shit on you. And if you're on the left, it's because big pharma's profits are being put first. That's why people are then taking horse dewormers. That's the reason why. This is not like this is so naive to think that this is just concerns over efficacy. No. A third don't trust the government. Yeah, that is related to that. And only then do we arrive at the just less than a quarter who don't believe they personally need a vaccine. So this is like from this quarter down, a rung down after 22% who aren't sure that the vaccines are actually protective are another 17% who don't see COVID as a major threat. Okay, so these people, like this percentage here, that's like the hard anti-vaxxers. Okay, the ones above here are the soft anti-vaxxers. They're not like openly against vaccines. They're just concerned about this one. In the end, it's the same. But she completely discounts the idea that these people have been brainwashed by conspiracy theories, and who, because of those conspiracy theories and because of their ideological leanings, if they're in like the Jimmy Dore camp of anti-establishment types, then they'll be against the vaccine because of big pharma, and that's how it reflects in this choice. So I don't understand why someone as smart as she is taking this sort of ad verbatim when there's clearly more context to why people are answering that way. So what strikes me about the response of the unvaccinated, as opposed to the tempting caricature presented by their worst representatives in pulpits and politics, is that there does seem to be a significant willingness to consider vaccination. Really? Really? I don't think that's the case. For all of them. For probably about half of them, I think, are open to persuasion. The other half is probably not. And that half that's open to persuasion is probably being persuaded, A, because they do understand better than the other ones the reality that this is a serious fucking disease. And perhaps because they have been mocked, and maybe not themselves, but they've seen others get mocked and shamed. So I do think that it does work. And then she ends with an anecdote, because she called one of her uncles, who was apparently his wife had chosen not to get a shot, and they were thinking yada yada yada, and apparently they spoke, and apparently they're thinking about it. Here's the thing: this kind of persuasion doesn't always work. In fact, I would say that in the majority of cases, it probably doesn't work. No matter how nice you are, it will not work if their beliefs are already kind of tattooed in their pea-sized brains. And here's a really, this one's an awful news. This one just a couple of days. Actually, this was today. I read it this morning. Florida vaccine advocate loses 6 unvaccinated family members to COVID-19 within 3 weeks. So that's Lisa Wilson. Apparently she goes door to door advocating for vaccines, and apparently directly had spoken, I guess. I suppose she had spoken with her family about this, and well, the uncle got sick, died. Grandmother got sick, died. 3 cousins got sick. They all died. So you tell me that this, I don't want to kind of belittle her efforts. I think what she's doing is very noble. I think, great for her. I feel terrible for her that she had to go through the trauma of losing 6 family members, despite making such efforts to avoid that. That's the tragedy. It's the people they leave behind, these selfish pricks. But I have zero sympathy and zero empathy for the other ones who died, because they have learned the hard way through the mockery, through the shaming, and they also learned the good way through the persuasive efforts of other family members, other friends, and they still don't do it. So that doesn't work either. So, in conclusion, since being nice to them doesn't work, and being nasty to them doesn't work, being nasty is way more fun. So fuck them, mock them, shame them, I don't care. Maybe amidst that deluge of mockery, there will be someone who's maybe just a bit hesitant, who will want to be on the side of the mocker rather than the mocked. So, do you agree? Do you disagree? I'm sure if you're a Jimmy Dore fan, you'll disagree. Or a Glenn Greenwald fan who's more obsessed with shaming those who do the shaming rather than promote vaccine use in any meaningful way. Pick your side. History will judge. On that note, if you like this video, please like, please share. Most importantly, please subscribe, and see you next time.